Peter, you said gold is real money. What is real money? What is money to you? How are you defining this money?
Well,
word?
I don't have my own definition. I just look at classic definitions. So what money is the most marketable commodity, because you have to look back at the origin of money. You know, where did it come from? You know, we didn't always have money. And so before we had money, humans traded through barter. And so in barter, if I had a good that you wanted and you had a good that I wanted, you know, we could exchange and we would both benefit. But that's very cumbersome because you need a confluence of needs. I have to want what you have and you have to want what I have. And if we don't, we can't trade. And so eventually societies discovered that you could take one commodity that everybody could accept in exchange for whatever they had. Even if you didn't need that commodity, you knew that somebody else would. And so that was the invention of money, where people would accept a commodity not because they needed it, but because they knew somebody else might need it and they could hold on to it. But in order to be money, there were a lot of characteristics that a commodity would have to have. And that excluded most commodities from being viable money. But a lot of different commodities over the centuries were tried. But the one that was the most successful over the centuries was gold. And gold beat out other forms of money in a competitive free market. And, you know, the characteristics that, you know, you have, gold is portable, it's divisible, it's immutable, it doesn't decay. So it has all these things that money has to have. And because it doesn't decay, it's a store of value. So if I accept gold in exchange for my goods or services, I can hold on to the gold for a while. I don't need to immediately, you know, turn around and exchange it. I can hold on to it a year later, 5 years later, and it's just as valuable as the day I received it. So, you know, but Bitcoin, what they tried to do with Bitcoin is they copied a lot of the qualities that made gold a better form of money than other commodities. But they left out the most important aspect of the whole thing, was the underlying value of the commodity itself, because money has to be an actual commodity. So it's an actual good that has value in and of itself, right? And Bitcoin doesn't have that. Bitcoin just has these properties without the underlying value. And without the value, you can't be a store of value because you have nothing to store. See, in that sense, Bitcoin has a lot in common with fiat. See, legitimate currency is currency that's backed by actual money. And that was the original currency was backed by real money, because nobody would just take paper. But because the paper was backed by gold, it was really a warehouse receipt for gold. People accepted paper because they knew they can go to the warehouse and get the gold. It was an IOU, evidence of ownership for gold. Governments eventually figured out how to create fiat currency, which was backed by nothing. They would mandate that it was legal tender and people would use it. They would demand it as payment of taxes, which is like a tribute to the government. But at the end of the day, what really gives fiat currency value, it's not just the government decree, it's confidence, it's faith. People have to believe that it will be accepted in the future the way it's accepted in the present. So it's really that belief set that gives it value. Government helps create that belief, right, and get people to believe in it because it's got the backing of a government. But plenty of governments have seen their currencies wiped out. They go to zero when the confidence is lost. And so Bitcoin has that aspect in common. It's all based on confidence. It doesn't get its value the way gold does, which is because it's a metal that people need. Look, I knew I was going to be on this podcast. I got, you know, a gold bracelet on, a gold watch. I got rings.
You're blinging it up. It's actually
right?
super impressive.
But gold is a real thing, and it's not just used, you know, as jewelry. It's used in electronics. It's used in dentistry. It's used in aerospace. I mean, it would be used even more, but it's too expensive, right? But it's for most of the jobs that other metals are doing, gold could actually do it better. But, you know, gold only goes to its highest and best use because it is so scarce. So people only use it if they have to. But Bitcoin, nobody has to use Bitcoin for anything because you can't use it for anything. So it's just a token that people buy because they hope somebody else buys it at a higher price. Well, there's thousands of other tokens that are like that, tens of thousands actually. And there's no limit to how many can be created in the future. You know, they may have a different name than Bitcoin, but other than that, and they may even be better in a sense that, if they may be cheaper, faster, to use, or in fact, they've already come up with cryptos that are better. But as far as I'm concerned, none of them have any value. What the future of blockchain is going to be backing it by real money. So just like legitimate currency was backed by real money, you could have a cryptocurrency that's also backed by real money. Right? You could theoretically tokenize gold, but the tokens that you're creating themselves are not gold. They're just tokens. But what they can do is they can represent ownership of gold. And so instead of me sending you my gold, which, I have to, put it in the mail and ship it to you if you're not, right here where I can hand it to you. Instead of giving you the gold, I can just give you my ownership of that gold by transferring that ownership to you digitally, which I could do instantaneously at basically zero cost. So it's a lot more efficient than transferring Bitcoin. The difference is when I transfer gold ownership to you, I'm giving you something. When I transfer my Bitcoin, I'm giving you nothing. I'm just giving you the hope that you have that you'll be able to make a similar transfer with an even greater fool at some point in the future. So that's basically the bottom line. And just, one thing, people try to say that Bitcoin is digital gold. And it's no more digital gold than a image of a hamburger is digital food. Right? I mean, you can't eat digital food. You're gonna starve to death if your only diet is digital food. So that's the same thing with gold. Gold has to be physical because the properties of gold are physical. I can't make jewelry without physical gold. I can't conduct electricity without physical gold, right? Gold needs to be physical. There are some things that could be digital. Music could be digital. I could listen to digital music, just as easily as listening to a record, right? I can read a book digitally. I don't need to have the actual physical book in my hand. I can read the words. So some things, could be digital, but other things like food and gold can't.
So, Peter, we on Bankless, we have told the story of like the anthropological journey of money a handful of times. This is honestly like one of my favorite stories. These ideas that societies will come up with their own monies internally, then these societies will discover each other, and then their two monies will compete, and one will end up on top. And gold is the apex predator of this competition for money. I think it's one of the more fascinating stories about money that exists. But that begs the question: why is gold the final destination? Why is gold the final equilibrium of this Darwinian fight to be the best money? Why does it have to stop at gold? Why can't there be something in the future that surpasses gold, as so many have surpassed other monies over time? Why is gold the final destination?
Well, I mean, it's been the best form of money for hundreds of years, and nothing has come around that's been better. But look, you could use other things as money. It doesn't have to be gold. And you could use other things as money. I mean, I'm not against other commodities. If people want to use them as money, they can, right? I mean, look, cigarettes are money in prisons, right? Not all the prisoners smoke, but some do, and that gives the cigarettes value because you can smoke them. But nobody can smoke Bitcoin, right? So there's no use there. I mean, people are smoking something who are buying Bitcoin. But, Bitcoin is not the next evolution. Bitcoin is a step backwards when it comes to, if anybody was to look at it. I mean, look, they've been trying to come up with gold, the alchemists of their day were trying to come up with it. This is just the latest iteration of that. It's called fool's gold. Just because it's on the blockchain, doesn't change the dynamic. I call it a blockchain letter, which is really what it is, right? That's what's new. It's just a newer way to repackage an old con, which is a pyramid scheme. chain letter, Ponzi. I mean, those are the words that describe what's going on with Bitcoin. I will grant it that as far as Ponzi's go, or pyramids, this is one of the most successful ones there's been. Maybe it's the most successful. Maybe it's going to go on for a while longer. Maybe it's already peaked. I mean, I know that Bitcoin is down over 30% from its peak almost 3 years ago in terms of gold. So I think that says a lot, that despite all the hype that we've seen in the last few years, El Salvador, Michael Saylor's, all the ETFs, First Bitcoin, Ethereum, NFTs, Super Bowl ads, all this stuff, Wall Street coming in, Republican convention, let's get the U.S. government to use taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin. They've thrown everything at Bitcoin, and it's not making new highs. So that's got to tell you that there's some serious money that's been selling Bitcoin for the last few years. My guess is the people who are selling it are a lot smarter than the people who are buying it. They probably bought it a long time ago and knew they were going to hype it up. And hats off to them. They succeeded. But now, in order to really complete, they have to get out, right? Because you have to turn your paper wealth into real wealth. You want to buy things with your Bitcoin, you got to sell the Bitcoin first. And so that's what's going on. But I feel sorry for a lot of the people who are buying now, who have bought over the last few years, who are going to lose a lot of money. These are the bag holders in any pyramid scheme. It's the people that come in at the end. They're the ones that make it possible for the people that came in at the beginning to make money, right? There's no real money being made here. It's just a transfer. Wealth is transferred from the people who sell the Bitcoin, or from the people who buy the Bitcoin, to the people who sell it. And it's actually a negative sum game because, you have to cut in the miners, and there's a whole cottage industry built around hyping up Bitcoin. So it's not even a zero-sum game. It's a negative-sum game if you think of it that way, because it's like a casino with a huge rake, because there's so many people grabbing money out of the pot that at the end of the day, even some of the winners end up losing.
And so, Peter, your explanation for why Bitcoin, some people would hear what you said and be like, well, gold has had 10,000 years or whatever through civilization. Bitcoin has had 15 years, and it's $1.2 trillion in value. I mean, for 15 years old, that's not too shabby. What is that, like 15% of the market cap of gold? Something to that effect?
Well, you're making my point. I mean, Bitcoin's only been around for 15 years. Talk to me in 1,000 years. Let's see if it's still around. But
we're going to be around in 1,000 years, Peter? What do you know that I don't?
Well, I don't know. Well, AI's coming, right? Maybe it'll make us immortal. But
okay. Well, I have a few questions. So it seems like the crux of your argument. And by the way, I guess we'll get right to the crypto, Bitcoin versus gold kind of conversation immediately. But we have some other things we want to talk about. But one of your main points about Bitcoin is that there's no underlying sort of utility, let's say, right? So gold you can use in electronics. Gold has some consumption good value. It's sort of a commodity in that way. One use case for Bitcoin is actually you pay Bitcoin on the network in order to send Bitcoin. So I guess in a way that's sort of a utility, right? There's an exchange for it.
The question is, yes, if I can send you my Bitcoin, I've acknowledged that, but a lot of that is dependent on a market for Bitcoin in the future, which there may not be.
Fair enough. So that's somewhat recursive. I get it.
But the question is, there are other blockchains where I can do the same thing with their token.
Ethereum.
And so it's not like, gold does things that other metals simply can't. And that's where gold is used. Where other metals can do it, maybe not as good, that they use other metals because gold's too expensive. But I don't see that with Bitcoin, and it would be very rare.
Yeah. So,
look, even think about it this way. When you search, are you using Spyglass or American? I can't even remember some of the earlier search engines. Even Yahoo was a big one.
I don't Google anymore. I use ChatGPT.
I
use Google app for my phone.
In fact, I agree with you. I'm already not using Google as much as I'm using ChatGPT for a lot of things. So, how do you still have a MySpace account? Facebook took over that, and then Instagram came along, TikTok came along. You're always coming up with something better. So to say that Satoshi right, came up with Bitcoin, whatever it was, 13, 14 years ago, and nothing will be better. That is the greatest cryptocurrency that will ever be created from now until the end of time, and nothing is going to improve on that. I mean, it's this nonsense that's never happened. That the first TV is not the best TV. The first phone was not the best phone. The first car, the first plane, anything that man invents, man can make better. Man did not invent gold. God did. It came from the supernova, right? It's been here since the beginning of time. And so that's different than technology that always gets better with human ingenuity. And there's also, things are fads, right? People all of a sudden, people don't stuff phone booths anymore. I mean, they don't even have phone booths, but they don't have pet rocks, and one day they won't have Bitcoin. It's just like it's popular now.
So Peter,
it's part of the culture.
There are cryptocurrencies that have more utility, right? So one of which you've named, it has an ETF as well. It's called Ethereum, and so that actually has some induced demand outside of the Ethereum economy. In other words, like you can do tokenized treasuries, you can even do tokenized gold on Ethereum. When you pay to move that tokenized gold, or you create a smart contract,
tokenized gold has value.
But you're paying some gas fees, and that goes into the value. That creates utility value inside of the Ethereum. Do you think that has a chance to be a store of value like gold does?
Except tokenized gold actually works better on other blockchains where the gas is a fraction of the cost of Bitcoin. So just because I've created a gold token, I don't need the Ethereum blockchain in order to have it. I can use other blockchains that are more competitive. And so, yeah, I'm not saying that there's no value in blockchain whatsoever, but it's the tokens, these native tokens, that are of dubious value.
Yeah, I get
it. And
it.
is it possible that Bitcoin's value is something above zero? Yeah, I mean, if you want to argue that it has some value that's not zero, I'm not going to, argue a lot that maybe it has some value above zero. But it's not $60,000 above zero. I don't think it's anywhere close to that number. Look, I created an NFT and I stuck it on, it was not an NFT, an ordinal, and I put it on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Oh, good for you.
You can go buy it at what Magic Eden is called Golden Triumph. I sold like 100 of these things. But you could go on there and buy them. There's a secondary market for them. But when I initially sold them, you got a signed original print with my signature on it with your ordinal. So you actually had something real that you can hang on your wall, and it was scarce, and I only made 100 of them, and I've never made another one since. So it's the first and only Peter Schiff original painting, and that's also an ordinal or print. We actually made an original painting, and no one's bought that yet. I didn't get a high enough price for the painting, so I kept it. But we sold the print.
Yeah, see, people like digital things like this.
Yeah,
so another piece of your argument, you said what gives fiat currency values people have to believe. Isn't that the thing that gives all monetary units value? Isn't the thing that gives Bitcoin value or even gold value is you have kind of consensus belief that this is a good instrument to store your value. You don't think that this is all a coordination consensus game all the way down?
No, because you don't have to believe in an actual commodity like gold. Gold has value because of its monetary properties that are so useful to man or woman, humans. Now, some humans may value gold more than others, right? But there is value there that is undeniable.
Well, that's like a floor value. It's got like a commodity value that's worth what? I don't know, 1 trillion, 1.2 trillion.
No, I don't know.
Everything above that is like, it's monetary
the
value.
idea that the value of gold, right? I hear this from the Bitcoin people all the time, that only 10% or whatever of gold's market cap is because of its metal, and the rest is because it's money, which is not even close to true, because nobody other than central banks are even using it as money today. Yes, people are storing gold as a store of value, but they're storing that gold because there is real demand in the future for that gold. Somebody ultimately is going to use that gold. They may not be alive yet, but they're going to need it. And in fact, we're actually discovering more uses for gold all the time. There are more uses for gold today than there were 100 years ago, than there were 1,000 years ago. And of course, there's more people. But so The gold that we have today, today's price represents the present value of its use into the future in perpetuity. So no other commodity really is like that, because no other commodity is going to be here that long into the future, but gold will. And so I would say that the monetary premium that gold might have extra to its price is probably as small as it's ever been. And that's one of the reasons that I think that the price is still so low. I think that there's very little premium built into the price of gold right now because it's not being used as money. I think it will be. In fact, I think the world is going to remonetize gold. I think we're going to go back on the gold standard. I mean, I think there's no other way this fiat experiment is going to end other than a return to gold. And when that happens, gold's price is going to have to be much, much higher than it is today.
To continue leveling up your crypto game, then you need to get on the Bankless newsletter. It's the world's most popular crypto email and is completely free. Just click below to sign up.